Hello and welcome back to Law Tech Talks, a four-part podcast series exploring the current state of technology and innovation in UK legal services. On this episode, I'll be talking to Dr. Richard Parnham of the University of Oxford's Said Business School about the role of technology and innovation in reducing unmet legal needs. Richard, welcome to Law Tech Talks. So, why don't you begin by telling us what you mean by unmet legal needs?
Yes, unmet legal need is a surprisingly technical term. It doesn't just mean I cannot afford legal services. It also means, do you appreciate that you have a legal problem, and do you feel inclined to do anything about it? And that's relevant to the law and technology and how it can help reduce unmet need. Is if people do not appreciate they have a legal problem in the first place, they are never likely to seek advice. And secondly, if they don't think it's serious, they won't seek advice. And the third contributing factor that's relevant to the regulated community is who do they seek advice from? Because quite often people seek advice from their friends, their families, trade unions, whatever. So the point at which technology and innovation can help reduce unmet legal needs, specifically related to SRA regulated practices, is the point of the journey of which people maybe want to instruct a lawyer as opposed to anybody else. And hopefully then it can help reduce things like cost.
Okay, so just to wind back slightly, so you said that legal needs includes both recognizing you have a problem and then seeking it out. And so is there anything that technology can do to help people recognize that they have a legal problem?
Well, that's some of the things that we've been looking at is where providers can provide a diagnostic tool to actually kind of work through whether they think they may have got something, and it goes through the process and said, yes, you have a legal problem. So that can help. And obviously law firms' general marketing activities are based around highlighting the legal issues and the problems exist. So on the one hand, you've got traditional law firm marketing, which can basically raise awareness, but at a more granular basis, it's all about diagnostic tools, for example.
I see. And what other ways then can tech and innovation play in reducing unmet legal needs?
So I think there are probably kind of two main ways. The first is what's known as productizing legal services, and that is your classic chatbots, your kind of like your tools where you can fill out forms on using self-service tools. The other significant way we found from our interviews is lowering the cost of legal services delivery. And here's quite a few firms we interviewed had invested in online portals. And the idea is that you can do some of the work, they do some of the work, you do uploading, and the software checks things. And we found law firms saying that they were saving, upwards of £100,000 taking out the cost by people self-serving to a certain extent, which obviously helps lower overall cost of legal services delivery.
And is there, if we kind of zoom in on the consumer small business market space, what does innovation sort of currently look like in that part of the market?
Well, the top line figures from our survey said that innovation was generally slightly less in the people law space, the kind of consumer face, than the big law space. Again, from our survey results, some of the most popular kind of focuses of innovation were in the conveyancing, wills and probate and family, and some of those kind of lend themselves to kind of productization. And in firms for clients, so firms who supply the kind of personal legal market, we found some evidence of bundling of services, so legal and non-legal services together. So maybe, for example, you've got a will, you probate, funerals, that kind of thing. So that was a kind of like a broadening of services. So on the one hand, you might have automated services. On the other hand, you may have bundled services.
Are there certain factors that make it more difficult for technology to be adopted in the people law space as opposed to big law? And I know we've talked about resource constraints previously, but is it more than that?
So resource constraints was definitely the big one that came out of our survey. Is that there were more likely to be resource constraints amongst the people law firms. The people law space is different from the big law space in that you have one-off customers doing one-off purchases, and so that is inherently a scaling issue. We also did a bit of a case history on employment law, for example, and that was quite interesting because what that showed is the innovation was taking place at a very granular level. You can't say we are innovating in employment law. You're saying I am doing a diagnostic tool for for discrimination, for example, or I'm doing a tool for COVID verification for health and safety purposes. So that is another challenge that in the people law spaces, legal needs are very specific. And the client base is not repeat. So you have those two factors working together, and that makes it quite tricky. One of the other surprising findings from doing our interviews is that quite a lot of law firms were the ones that were innovating were tending to have to use their own expertise to develop legal software solutions. There weren't a readily available selection of products on the market. So the innovators were very much outliers in terms of their knowledge base, their technical knowledge base to build these solutions. It wasn't the case of just plug and play.
And what about on the consumer side? Is it sort of more difficult for consumers to, or as clients, to interface or interact with these technological solutions? So is there a kind of a technological literacy piece to this?
In all honesty, it's probably more of a supply issue. From our survey, there are still a minority of firms who offer services online. There are a very small minority of firms who have things like chatbots. So that is a supply issue. On the attitudes side, previous research has shown that people are quite they like local firms. They like dealing face to face. The question is, what will be the legacy impact of COVID on that? Will firms be more happy with remote provision? And that is something where from the survey, we're starting to see more remote provision coming in down the tracks. But that's going to be something where the consumer will really lead on that.
It's really interesting. So, beyond changing attitudes, what else do you think could be done to, drive investment in technology and adoption of technology to meet unmet legal needs?
One of the things that we came across from our interviews, and wasn't something that we specifically looked for, is that there were a few law firms in the space who were innovating around the Whiplash portal, which is a new government service that's been provided. And this service is notionally designed to operate without lawyers, but it's actually quite a complex area of law, so the official guidance is huge. So what law firms have done is effectively built services which plug into the government portal and offer kind of essentially self-service, but a little bit of freemium service around it. So that's quite an interesting way that the government general digitization of legal services has promoted a small amount of investment. Now that's just one use case. We don't know how widespread that is, but in terms of a driver that cropped up again and again in interviews, we thought that was quite interesting.
So what is the role of legal technology providers then in reducing unmet legal needs?
I think it may be the absolute provision of supply. I mean, there are law firms out there who are building solutions which help address unmet legal need, but they currently need help. They are building them themselves. They're using their own resources, their own expertise, and there may be potential for expansion in terms of law tech providers serving that market to help basically democratize access to services which address unmet legal need. So so the provision by law tech companies, greater provision of legal tech companies of consumer-facing delivery of legal services, which law firms can then use to help reduce unmet legal need.
Really interesting. Thanks so much, Richard, for sharing your insights. And we look forward to hearing more from you on the next episode of Law Tech Talks.